notes to that committee. He gave a very interesting report, and I'm not quoting his report, but I just think that roughly about 70% of the citizens in this city really don't have legal shelter. EMIs for legal shelter schemes are out of reach for affordability for the majority of the citizens. There is no scheme where you can buy and pay EMIs for, I would say, 60 to 70% of the people in the city. It's a myth that our builders and contractors are going to supply housing for the city. People live in illegal settlements like slums, illegal layouts, construction workers, temporary shelters, and unhygienic urban villages. So we have a huge percentage of our population who doesn't live along the main roads, who are not part of the middle class, who don't live in fancy apartments and gated communities. And I think if we really want to get down to things, we have to realize there's something called the right to the city, and that most of the people who live in Pune really can't become true citizens and own a dwelling. We had a study in Bombay where we realized that only 3% of the metropolitan population in Bombay could afford any EMI south of the airport. And if you go on out to Thane and the next ring out, only about 6% of people could afford EMIs, so you got 9. And if you go way out to the end of the edge of to Karjat and up towards Gujarat, another 17% came in. So we were talking about maybe only 26% of the people in the Bombay metropolitan region could afford any EMI of any scheme, which left us with something like 74% of the people as non-citizens, people without a right to the city because they couldn't afford anything. And I think having a stake in the city means owning something, and then you become a real stakeholder and you have a right to the city. Now, the next thing is I call the tipping scale. I just finished writing a paper. I'm writing a book called The Principles of Intelligent Urbanism. And for each principle, I'm writing 2 or 3 of my experiences in urban development. Way back in the 80s, I went to Zambia. Can we show the next picture? I went to Zambia to look at some community development programs there. And when I was in Zambia, I realized there's something called a tipping scale. And whenever I read about Afghanistan or things that happen in Pakistan, I realize something, if you have a scale, there's something I call the civil society and something I call the evil society, and things tip towards the evil society. I wish we could get that slide up. He had the first one. Can you hear me up there?
Yeah.
Okay, next. Next. Yes. Okay. Pull it down a little. Tigging. See, what I'm looking at is something called the tipping scale. That a society can tip towards the civil society, which are its people, its honest civil servants, law, security, order, a rational land system, taxes, revenue, and financial institutions. When the tip goes the other way, corrupt officials, gangs and henchmen, we have them in Pune. You may not be aware, you can have somebody killed here for a price. That's part of our city. Corrupt politicians, corrupt professionals. Now, I'm a professional. In my profession, there are architects who take work for 1 or 2%, and they survive by kickbacks from the contractors and vendors and suppliers. And people feel they're smart to get a project for 2% and not pay the Council of Architecture's 5%, but they don't realize that the professionals can be smarter than they are. So, tipping scale, corrupt professionals, a nexus between the land regime and civil service. We all know what happens in our land regime. I myself had a major battle with the land mafia. I was telling you the other night, Vandana, when I bought the land for the Center for Development Studies and Activities, I had to virtually go to war with the land mafia in the city. And see, we talk about the informal sector, and we always talk about people in slums rolling BDs and gadiwalas on the roads selling snacks, and we say that's the informal sector. I want to expand on that. Let me see if it's in the next one. Well, what is the informal sector? It's architects working in black money. It's people taking bribes in the corporation to clear the NOCs, to get CCs for taking possession, to get all the kinds of. Our municipal corporation works largely in the informal sector. There's a huge amount of money flowing in cash in the government, amongst professionals, everywhere, in businesses. So I think we need to realize really, when we talk about informal sector, it's also our institutions, our businesses. It's not just little people selling wadas on the road. So that's something we need to look at. Can we stop that? Because when we're talking about the tipping scale, if our government is involved in informal sector activities, if the architects are involved, if everybody's involved, the whole society is going to slide that way, and it will slide spiraling into chaos. No? And see, we've seen this happen in Afghanistan. We're watching it happen in Pakistan. We saw it happen on and off in Sri Lanka. And I think we should be aware that our society could also tip into chaos unless we become smart about the informal sector activity going on. Now, I don't know if you can slide up again. Oh, what is the informal sector? Great, he's got it there. So I wanted to just cover that idea. It's something we should think about. What is the informal sector, and what can we do about that? Now, who does what? You see, I live in Baliwadi. I believe I'm in the pilot project area. I would like to say that I should put a note down. I pay about 6 lakhs a year land taxes now. I have 2 buildings pretty close to each other. I've paid development fees of both buildings 65 lakhs. I don't have a road in front of my house. I don't have sidewalks. I don't have a sewage system. The water supply pipe was big enough for our society, but now 23-story towers are using those same pipes now. The road hasn't been built. So when people think about smart cities mission, they think about where they live. I don't think about the sidewalk around the corner. I think about where I live. And here's a note that I have. I don't think smart cities projects should be paying for my sidewalks. I don't think they should be paying for my roads. I think my development fees that I paid, 65 lakhs and everybody else in there, it's enough money. So I don't think we should be looking for a central program to provide what the Municipalities Act says it's the duty of the corporation to supply roads, sewage, water supply, etc. It's the duty, and it should come out of the revenue sources of the city. So that raises the question of who does what, and I think I've got a thing there. Okay, I understand that our municipal corporation under the Act is supposed to get revenue from land taxes and other fees, provide potable water, sewage systems, etc. So I don't think smart cities should be doing these things. Let me just cut it short. I think what smart cities should be doing is what Vandana talked about. I think we should take one health eco issue, like maybe sewage, and say, during 5 years, can we clean up the entire sewage system of the city? Our rivers have become the sewage system. Our rivers have become the sewage system. We're killing ourselves by polluting our streams, 5 rivers, etc. We're also building illegally on the riverfronts. In the high flood line, we're faking the location of those lines. All kinds of corruption. Informal sector is taking place in the PMC to change the high flood lines and to allow people to build in flooding areas. I think somebody mentioned the hospital, again in Baliwadi, it's built in a flood zone illegally. And so they suffered because they did a trick. So let's look at the smart cities as central funding, which can be used for something for the good of the whole city. Like just take sewage now, or just take air pollution, or take these two, not everything else. We have too big a package with too many goodies in it. And I think if we just took sewage and said in 5 years we're going to have a beautiful sewage system in the city, we would have more impact on everyone, people in slums, people in Baliwadi, etc. I argued, you see, that Baliwadi and Aund and Benninger, if you take the personal purchasing capacity of the people who live there, and we were doing studies, I wrote a chapter on India in the book on livability last year, and everybody used Melbourne, Portland, Oregon. These are the examples of livability. This is what Aund and Benninger and Baliwadi should be. I said, but wait a minute. Our purchasing power is higher than the average purchasing power in Melbourne. The people who live in Aun, Benninger, and Baliwadi are rich people by world standards, right? Not by the value of rupees per dollar, but by what we can purchase for what we earn. And there are a number of studies that show that. They say amongst the 20 management centers in the world, Tokyo, New York, London, Bombay, Paris, Bombay the managers in Bombay have the highest purchasing power. It's something we're not aware of. Yes, we're a poor nation, but yes, we're a rich nation. We should not be having a pilot project in the center of wealth in the city. Baliwadi High Street is the new central business district. We are investing central funds to do something which we in Baliwadi should be made to pay higher taxes. I don't mind, but we should do it ourselves. Now, if I had to choose a pilot area, I don't know if I should go to the next one, but I would choose the slums of Pune. I would say, where are the highest stresses in the city? Where are the highest crime rates, the highest disease rates, the most overcrowding, the least potable water, no sewage system? That's where we should focus. Central funds can be used to go into deep problem areas, like our slums. I feel we could do miracles by taking central funds and using it to reach the people who need it. I think Professor Palshikar said something which I wrote down when he said, can social good be a key propeller of urban development? I would repeat that again and again and again. That's what MASHAL has been doing for 35 years. Can social good be the propeller of urban development? It means work in the slums. Go to the areas where there's the most urban stresses. How do you find urban stress? Look at who has water supply, who has sewage, who has the highest congestion levels and disease levels. And tackle that first. If you want to do something for the whole city, tackle sewage. Right? And I think if we had, see, the trouble is we take up 15 projects, right? 20 projects, and everything gets watered down, and nobody knows what's happening. So these are just a few of my observations, and I'm happy that in Pune we really have good people working with us, and that you even come to such meetings. You know, there are many cities where if you had this meeting, these chief executives would say, I don't want to go hear that. So I think we're lucky in Pune to have people like you, and I think we're proud of you, and we certainly honor you, but I think we need to go in a different direction. Thank you very much.